Hi everyone, welcome to the Angular version 13 launch party or hashtag NG update. I'm so excited to have all of you here to join us to talk about all of the great featurettes and improvements included in version 13. To talk more about exactly how your bundles are going to be smaller and your builds are going to be faster, I want to introduce you to Angular's engineering manager, Madlena. So Madlena, what is going to be new in version 13 that I have to look forward to?
Thank you, Emma. I'm excited to tell you all about it, but I also want to call out that if you want more details, you should definitely check out our blog post, which will have a lot more details about each of these. I'm just going to give you guys a high-level overview of most of the major features. We're going to start actually with version changes and deprecations because that's been one of the areas where we've had the most changes. The first one is that we no longer support IE11. I think a lot of you guys gave us good feedback on this, that this is something that you're fine with as well, and it gives us the chance to no longer have to have custom code for IE11 and does actually lead to build and performance improvements because of that lack of code that we have to support. And in even bigger news, we are finally able to remove View Engine from Angular v13. This is something the team has been working on for a long time, and we're super excited about what this will enable. And actually, some of the features that are upcoming are already enabled because we've removed View Engine. I hope all of you guys are looking forward to as well in the future where we just have Ivy and therefore just Angular. Lastly, we did also do our usual library updates. We are now at TypeScript 4.4 and RxJS 7.4. On the framework side, one of the things that we've now been able to do with View Engine being removed is improve your component creation story by no longer needing to do component factory resolver. We hope this makes your life much easier when you build out components. We've also improved our test isolation through automatic cleanup. This is now enabled by default. You can still turn it off if it turns out that your tests need a little bit more work before this is ready for you. But we do encourage you guys to adopt this because it will create much better tests and be giving you a more accurate picture of what your test and your product is actually doing by having this isolation. And lastly, we've done some localized improvements. There's been an improvement on the stability, the performance of the API, but most importantly, also improvements on the documentation side. If you haven't read it or haven't looked at it recently, I highly encourage you to look at our new and improved documentation for localized, $sign localized. On the tooling side, we have now enabled persistent build cache by default. This does a huge performance improvement if you're able to use it. If you're in one of those cases where you cannot use it yet, you can still turn it off, but it is now every new project, and by default, you're going to get it, and with that, some amazing performance improvements. On a bigger front, even, we have now made a large Angular package format changes for v13. This is one of the largest changes that we've done, and this is because we've removed View Engine. I know there's been some other changes needed for library support in other ways, but it does actually set us up more for success down the line by having a better library stories of being able to support it here. Lastly, we've done ES build performance improvements, and we hope that together with all of the other ones, it really does make a difference in your being able to notice what's going on, notice improved builds across the board. On the component side, we've continued to make accessibility improvements for our components. Many of our components now are following best guidelines and best practices for accessibility, and we hope that this allows you to build more accessible products so that they're more widely used for everybody across the board. There's still a couple of components we're working on, and we'll hope to get them out in time for v14. We've also added support for Adobe font inlining, and we'll see where we go from there. Hold on, sorry, wrong window. We've also, as always, had many community contributions, and there are a couple of them that we want to highlight. The first one is that we have now dynamically enabled disable validators, and I'm sure there's many of you that appreciate the work of being able to use this. We've also now have restore history after canceled navigation. I know that many users and many of us answer cancel navigation, so this is very helpful for them. And with that, I think that's been most of the major highlights I wanted to highlight. Again, if you want to know more about any one of these, please take a look at the blog post. There's a lot more details and a lot more links to follow. And I'll hand it over to Mark for Q&A.
All right, Madlena, thank you so much for sharing that update. Friends at home, give me a thumbs up if you can hear my audio nice and crisp. If we're feeling good, then I'm feeling great. All right, friends, so here's what's going to happen now. This is my favorite part of these events. We're going to bring the Angular team up on stage, and then it is the time for you to get your burning questions answered. So we would love to hear what your questions are about V13, about Angular, and we're going to get started. So let's welcome the Angular team on stage now. All right. It sounds like let's see. Got everyone here.
Someone's mowing their lawn. It was.
Okay, great. So there are some questions in the chat, friends, and let's get started. I saw a great question from Michael. So at Angular, what's the next stage of Ivy rollout for library makers? Currently, compilation is partial Ivy. Will there be another change in the future to go full Ivy? Who wants to take this one?
I can talk about this, Mark, if you'd like.
Go for it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Frickabaugh. I'm the tech lead of the Angular framework team. And then among other things, I work quite a bit on the Angular compiler. So I can tell you about partial Ivy and full Ivy. So the partial compilation mode that we introduced, I think last version as an opt-in thing that libraries could play around with, is needed to support publishing Ivy libraries to NPM. And that's because there's a kind of a fundamental discrepancy that happens when you build a library that you intend to ship to other consumers on NPM, and when people download that library to use it. So when you build your library, you may have installed Angular version 13.0.0 if you do it today. Then you publish that library to NPM, and someone comes along, 4 months later or something using Angular 13.2, and they download your library and go to use it in their application. And in between these two versions of Angular, right, the version you publish the library with and the version that you consume the library with, we may have changed how the instructions work, how runtime rendering actually works. And so we can't actually fully compile a library when you publish it to NPM, because that would tie that library very specifically to the version of Angular that you built it with. And that's obviously not a good scenario for anyone. We want people to be able to use libraries with many future versions of Angular. And so that's what partial compilation does. It allows us to do most of the processing of compiling the library, but allow the application build to actually generate instructions for those templates using whatever version of Angular you picked for an application. And so the only way we would be able to go to something like full Ivy is if we froze the Ivy instruction set. If we said the runtime had these particular instructions, they become public API, and we commit to not changing them in the future. And the problem with doing that is that then it really hinders our ability to make the kinds of optimizations and improvements in our runtime that we'd like to do from release to release to release. So I don't think you'll see us do full Ivy in the near future because of that.
Excellent. Okay, so does the persistent build cache relate to incremental build? Should we have the .cache in the repo? So I think it's a question about our new feature about the persistent build cache that we've enabled and how it relates to incremental builds, and if we should have the .cache file in the repo. Should they check that in?
Yeah, so I can take this one. I'm Doug. I'm a member of the tooling team. And the persistent build cache, what we're really using under the hood is sort of Webpack 5 caching. That's sort of the feature that's really enabled us to support this. And so it's, I guess it kind of comes down to how you define incremental. I don't really see it as being very related to incremental builds. It's more about caching the layer. But we're really using that to just kind of speed up the build process and reuse some functionality where we can. In terms of the .cache, my understanding is that you probably wouldn't want to check that in, just because that's kind of more of your local changes as you're developing things, and you probably don't want to go through a code review process for that each time you're going to push that up. That would probably be kind of frustrating. So I probably wouldn't do that, but this is more it's more something that will hold your cache, and just something that you might want to persist on CI. For example, if you build a one commit and then on the next commit in CI, you might want to sort of keep that directory around, so that way you're able to reuse that cache on your next CI build. And so that's kind of one example where you would want to sort of persist it, but you probably wouldn't want to check it.
Excellent. Doug in the building with the answer. Okay, let's see. Here we got another question. All right, so do you know how Angular 13 version 13 solved the protractor problem? What library will be the official successor to the end-to-end test? Will there be an official migration guide? So I want to jump in on part of this, but I'll let one of you folks start off, but I do have a partial answer for this.
I could probably start with this too. The simple answer is Angular v13 didn't change too much with protractor. Our strategy here has mostly been to kind of not be too opinionated about end-to-end tests and give you more well-supported integrations with different testing providers who can kind of help bring you on to their platforms, where they can give more direct support and being able to provide a better experience. And so a lot of sort of our support in this regard has been more about enabling those providers, working closely with them to be able to provide these kinds of very high quality testing experiences. Being able to do things like when you run ng end to end, it'll print out different providers that you can try, and then it'll show ng add commands. It'll really easily kind of just stick them into your project. And they also have migration guides for how you can switch over to their systems. So that's kind of the initial strategy that we have right now. One thing we do want to do in the future is kind of give a little bit more guidance and help the community sort of build that knowledge and understanding about the trade-offs between these different platforms, which ones you might want to use for different use cases and things like that. So we're trying to work with the community to sort of push a little bit more in that direction, help give a bit more guidance here, and kind of help users, pick the right testing provider for them and being able to use those within their project.
Excellent. Here's another question I saw. I saw something about component updates. Can someone explain more? Can somebody talk a little bit about that? The component updates that came out with this version?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that. The biggest thing that we've been doing on the components, which is Angular CDK and Angular Material, is accessibility improvements across the board. This is split between some of our current stable components in the Angular Material package and some of the components we've been working on for a while based on MDC Web that are currently in our Material experimental package. And kind of across the board, you can see improvements to touch target size, contrast ratios, support for high contrast mode, and some trickier screen reader issues that we've solved over the last 6 months.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing about that, Jeremy. Okay, let's see. We knew it was coming. I bet someone can guess our next question. It was bound to happen. Can we expect standalone component support to make their way into a 13.x update?
I can take that one. We'll see. It's possible that part of the solution could land in minor releases, but we are not sure yet about the full project. We are still going through all of the design and planning phases of that project. So the best thing you can do right now is to help us understand the full complexity of this project by participating in the RFC. I don't know, Mark, if you can drop an RFC link in here, but that's the place where the discussion is happening right now. And the RFC is going to close in about 3 days. So you still have a few more days to participate there. Once the RFC is closed, then we will make official plan and figure out when is the right time for these features to land. But as I assume the person, Pavan, I assume that he's excited about standalone components just like we are. So we are all trying to get this out as soon as possible.
I just want to add that this is definitely a team effort, and no one will stand alone working on this.
Very nice, guys.
By the way, I'm Jessica. I work on the framework team, and I'm known for my puns. You're welcome.
What's your Twitter handle, Jessica?
You can find me at the Punder Woman.
Fitting.
Okay, Jessica, while you're on the mic, I would love to hear just a little bit about what you're working on. Can you share anything about what you're working on right now for Angular? Or what you're excited about for Angular version 13, maybe? I think that's a great question for you. What are you most excited about from the release?
Well, that's an interesting question, since I mostly don't work on stuff that's outwardly facing. I'm mostly working on stuff that's internal, and that was mostly my focus over the past time that I've been on this team. So I don't know, I'm looking forward to what's coming with what we just talked about, like the standalone components changes and some of the things that are even further out than that. There's some things we can't talk about yet, but things that I'm excited about are there.
Love it, love it. Okay, awesome. Let's get to some more questions because there's a ton of people. The people are lighting up the chat. People are so excited that you all are here, that we're here talking. So let's continue to get some more questions. Okay. Let's see this one. Are there any plans for typing in reactive form in the future?
I'm happy to talk about this.
Go for it.
Yes, indeed, there are. So the astute observers of the Angular repository may have noticed that one of the framework team members, Dylan, has a PR open right now with a prototype of strongly typed forms. And so what we've been doing is exploring the design space here. So understanding what the constraints are, what the challenges are for typing the existing APIs, if any of the APIs that we have in forms right now are just not capable of being typed in a clean and safe way. The answer there is yes, actually. There are some of the APIs that might have to behave differently under types. And so we've been trying to understand this problem, and I think you'll see probably an RFC either later this year or at the latest very early next year with the results of some of this effort.
Alex, don't people type into forms all the time?
Yes, indeed they do.
Also,
yeah.
Credit to Joey on that one. That was not mine.
I think it got a good reaction though.
I mean, it's pain, and it's a good type of pain. Okay, here's a great question. I'll leave this open for the team here. For teams who still have to support IE11, at least until the end of year 2022, what are some recommendations you have for these teams on how they can prepare and move forward beyond Angular 12?
I can take that one. So we have a good news because we have LTS, so long-term support. So version 12 is the last version that still supports I11, and that version will be fully supported until I believe, November 2022. So almost the end of the year. So if you really need IE11 support, then we have you covered.
Excellent, excellent. All right, I'm going to change gears for 1 second. Shout out to my friend Ethan. It's his birthday today. Ethan, happy birthday from the Angular team. So many questions. Okay, let's see. All right, so many. Oh my gosh. So many questions. So many questions. Let's see. Well, here's a good one. Let me find another good question here. All right, friends. Oh, this is a good question. So, which new guides are available with this release on the Angular.io site? Our resident expert is here. So, Dave, can you give us a little bit of feedback on what's new for the guides and documentation?
I'm the resident expert. That's a terrible idea. Probably the biggest update from the documentation side is the content we added in under internationalization. Not only is the dollar localized documented fully, but we reworked the entire section to make finding information faster, more discoverable, easier to update. Lots of really good things. And in fact, some of these changes that you see in that section, we're going to be rolling out to other sections of the docs at a time to be determined. But that's probably the largest update that we've put in, and I'm proud of that work. It was good work. So a lot of collaboration to get that out there.
Excellent. And a lot of people have been asking about $ localized when we do some of the YouTube videos. There have been comments like, where's the $ localized content? We want more content. So friends out there, if you've been wanting that, it is here for you, and the party is being started. Okay, so here's another question that I have, because I just want to get to hear from more people from the team. So we have Zach from the Framework team here. Zach, what are you most excited about in version 13?
Oh, what's up, Mark? How you doing this morning? Most
Doing
excited
great.
about the package format work because of like the opportunities it creates for like library authors. So I think what part of makes the like Angular ecosystem so powerful is that like there's like a good collaboration between like different libraries, between like Angular Material, Angular, RxJS, etc. And like I have a high degree of confidence that like you can put them together and they'll play nicely with each other.
Excellent. I love that. Here's a highly technical question. So this one's going to be a little bit challenging, but I love this team so much and I know what we're capable of. So let's see how we can handle this next question. Are there any gamers here? If so, what are people playing right now?
Oh, how long do you want me to talk?
Let's see. Give your like top 2 games you're playing right now, or 1 or 2 games.
All right. So I'm playing a tabletop game that's been turned into a video game. So there's a RPG called Solasta, Crown of the Magister, which is basically a unlicensed version of D&D using the 5th edition SRD, which is really fun and kind of scratches that itch for D&D when people can't get together in real life. And I'm on the verge of going to play the Outer Wilds DLC, Echoes of the Eye. Outer Wilds is just a phenomenal game that everyone can enjoy.
Wonderful, wonderful. What else are people playing? Jessica, I know you game quite a bit. What are you playing?
I would also say Outer Wilds is great. I've played a bit of it. I've not finished it though. Right now I'm playing mostly Metroid Dread, and I started Deathloop, but I have not played too far into it yet. But it's really cool, and I really like the developer of that game. So that's what I've been playing. What about you, Mark? What are you playing?
What am I playing? So I have a humongous backlog of games, but right now I'm on a kick of like strong female leads in games. So I've already finished all the Tomb Raiders. I just finished Horizon Zero Dawn, and I'm currently on The Last of Us Part 2. My emotions are very high as I play this game. It's a very emotional game, and so it's been a blast, and I'm looking forward to finishing it. All right, wait. The people want to know more technical questions. I thought this was a really great question, so I'm just gonna, I'm so glad we got to answer some of these. But with a few minutes left, let's get a couple more questions. Oh, this is great. This is a request, but so is it possible to add more sample documentation on the Angular CDK, Angular Material projects? I'm talking relatively about overriding components and virtual scroll with data fetching. So. I don't know if this is really a question that this is like a yes or no answer, but I think it can be interesting to put this on our radar as something that people are interested in. Any comments or feedback on this one?
This is definitely on my backlog. It's unfortunately kind of languished at a lower priority for a long time, since the team's attention has largely been focused on the MDC-based components we've been working on for a while. And when we do get to a point where those MDC components are going to be going into stable, we'll be doing kind of a bigger overhaul of our documentation site to update everything for those new versions. And so you may see some improvements and additional examples coming in that. But this is also, I'll maybe flip it around and say, this is a great opportunity for anyone who is interested in contributing, because adding an example or adding a little bit to the docs is a great way to have kind of a low stakes contribution if you're interested in that.
Well, I love that. A great opportunity. So the Angular community in general, so we love you all because you add so many great features to the framework. So please, please continue that trend of participating and contributing because we appreciate it. We got time for a few more questions. This is technically to Jeremy, but anyone who knows about this can answer to give Jeremy, some time to not have to answer all the questions for us. Got a question about, is there any plan to fix the issues with the CDK virtual scrolls when used together with CDK drag and drop? Is this on our roadmap or any ideas about this issue? Any updates we can provide to the community?
The details of that one off the top of my head. I vaguely remember seeing an issue about there being some bug when they work together. If you vote up on the issue, that makes it more likely to come up on our radar. And I don't know, I can follow up sometime after this and kind of take a peek at it and see what next steps on it might be. But that's probably one of the more complicated ones because it's two, complicated things interacting with each other. So I don't know what might be going on there.
Okay. Here's another question. Is ES-Build used for more stages in the pipeline for V13 when compared to V12?
I could probably jump in here. I don't think it's necessarily used for more stages. It's more that I admit I'm not super familiar with the intricacies of the improvements that we made there. But I think it's more general performance improvements rather than necessarily expanding to more stages. Doesn't quite work out that way, but I admit I'm not super familiar with exactly how this particular feature is implemented. This is done by Charles on the tooling team. He knows a little bit more than I do, unfortunately. He's not quite here today.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I got a question for Joey, actually. Joey, for you, what are you most excited about from the V13 release?
So, hi everybody, I'm Joey. I mostly work on the infrastructure that we actually use to create and publish Angular. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and talk about what I'm excited for that is the same timing of our release. We've made a lot of improvements and strides in being more consistent with how the experience is contributing to Angular. And we are continuing to work on making that a better and more understandable experience across our repos and within our repos. So I'm excited at the improvements we've made at allowing our community to help participate in improving Angular and making it a bit easier for everybody to contribute. To directly answer your question, since I think it was the only thing publicly facing that I had a hand in, being able to tear down modules between tests, it was a big passion project of mine, apparently, as it was the only thing I did that ended up being public facing. So everybody make sure that in my honor, you tear down your tests tear down your modules between tests.
I appreciate it, Joey.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think I want to close this because we're actually out of time. So here's what we're going to do. For folks, everyone on the team, I want a 5 to 10 second answer on this one. Just with view engine remove, what is the team most excited about? Jump in, answer quickly so we can finish up our Q&A.
We are running less tests on our own infrastructure by removing view engine. And as the person responsible for that infrastructure, that's what I'm most excited about.
I love that. Anybody else want to jump in on this one?
My favorite is the one where we don't have to worry about how to make something work both with Vue Engine and Ivy. That's a big one.
Excellent.
I'm very excited for standalone components and the future beyond them.
I second that.
Yeah,
I'll agree with Joey that I like CI being more stable by not having to run those extra tests, but also that just about simplifying the onboarding story with Angular. So having standalone components, you don't have to worry so much about ng modules and things like that. I'm excited to see where we can push that and make the getting started story a little bit simpler for new developers.
All
right,
repeat
friends.
that.
So here, go ahead, Emma. We got time for you for sure.
My quick answer is I'm still relatively new to Angular, and it's one less thing I have to worry about trying to understand.
I'm with you on that one. Okay, friends at home, so here's what's going to happen. I know you have more questions, but the story's not over. Tune into our gaming Q&A where you can bring those questions. We'll save these questions and we'll be answering them in the next gaming Q&A that's going to be on the Angular YouTube channel. So definitely tune in for that and you'll have more time to speak with us from the Angular team. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Emma to take us home.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say thank you to Mark, Jessica, Jeremy, Zach, Igor, Joey, Doug, Dave, and Alex, and everyone else who joined the live stream and asked questions. If you didn't get them answered, you can definitely tweet at Angular on our Twitter. And I am on the other side of it to make sure that we get you answers for all of your questions. And without further ado, I am so excited for you to go NG update. If you want to continue the party and go NG update with some friends and other community members, feel free to join us. There are a bunch of different meetups down below in the description for this live stream. So I know in Angular Heidelberg, Angular Air, the community Discord, This is Angular and Angular Nation are all hosting events right now and are super excited to help you NG update wherever you are on your update journey. And without further ado, go NG update.
All right, friends.